Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're stepping into a world thick with wood smoke, the smell of roasting meat, and the low, knowing chuckles that ripple around a fire glowing in the dark. You're sitting here bare feet, pressed into cold earth, feeling each pebble nudge against your skin. Every rustle of leaves sounds like something creeping up behind you. But no, it's only the wind. Imagine it. No phone, no internet, and most importantly, no courts, no police, no fines. Just you, a wooden club, a few neighbors who enjoy boasting about their hunting skills, and a whole bundle of fireside tales to keep life from turning into open warfare. Truth be told, you probably wouldn't last long in this chapter of human history, especially when every meal is a lottery between full belly and sprinting for your life from a bear. But suppose you were reborn, and this time you found yourself as a prehistoric human. What would life be like when every dispute had to be solved in the most creative, sometimes downright amusing ways, without a scrap of formal law? So before you settle in, do me a small favor. Give the video a like and subscribe, only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. Right now, turn off the lights, maybe switch on a fan for a soft background hum, and let's enjoy tonight's journey together. Part 1. First steps by the fire. You open your eyes, and the first thing you see isn't the familiar ceiling of a warm room, but a thick animal hide hanging from above, speckled with dried blood, swaying ever so slightly as a draft creeps through the gaps in the stone shelter. Dawn light hasn't yet broken through, but a faint haze of smoke has already found its way into your hair, clinging like a reminder. This is your home now. No car horns, no alarm clocks, only the soft crackle of burning wood and the scent of smoke worked deep into your skin. You're lying on a thin layer of dried grass, enough to keep you slightly off the cold ground, but not enough to stop the small stones digging into your back. You have a fleeting thought. Pretty sure there's no bedsheet change service around here. Raised voices pull you back into the moment. A deep, gravelly tone. Who kept the fire last night? It's almost gone out. How are we meant to hunt this morning? A second voice, sharper and dry as wood striking flints. I kept it going until midnight. The rest was your shift. I nodded off because I was fanning your side of the fire to keep it going. The other shoots back. Before you can decide who's in the right, you're hauled out of your bedding and pushed into a circle of people standing around a mound of glowing embers. Here, fire isn't just a chore, it's survival insurance. One strong wind in the night could snuff it out, and then instead of breakfast, everyone would spend hours grinding two impossibly stubborn stones together for a spark. Nobody volunteers for that job. If this were the 21st century, the problem would be solved with a group chat, a few fire emojis, and maybe a mildly sarcastic sticker. Here, the group chat is a tight huddle of glaring eyes and pointed fingers with absolutely no language filter. Losing an argument doesn't just bruise your pride, it gets you stuck with a few extra nights of fire duty. Then the elder, the only one with enough standing to silence the noise, steps forward. Arms folded, he studies the embers and pronounces slowly. From today, everyone takes a turn. One night on, one night off. Nobody sleeps 2 nights in a row without keeping watch. Fair's fair. Nobody objects because here fairness means fewer people shouting at you, and that's that. No council hearing, no written minutes, and definitely no fines. Just a rotor that spins round like the seasons. Neato. You recall how historians in your previous life used to debate whether early communities worked on instinct or a proper system. Now you have your answer. It usually starts with an early morning squabble and ends with a temporary law. Everyone accepts, mostly because they can't be bothered to argue further. The camp falls back into its rhythm. A group of women and children gather kindling for your watch tonight. Young men shoulder stone-tipped spears and head off their laughter, mingling with the crunch of gravel underfoot. The smoke still lingers, but now it's joined by the rich scent of yesterday's half-cooked venison, enough to make your stomach grumble in protest at breakfast being delayed. You're handed a long stick, its charred tip still warm your firekeeper's staff, as they call it. The job is simple. Add wood. When the flames flag, rake the embers together. When the wind picks up, and keep any would-be pranksters from messing with the fire. A young man with hair like a bird's nest leans in, grinning, "Don't let it go out, or we'll be eating raw meat in the morning." You laugh, then realize he might be half serious. The truth is, here fire is more than cooking heat. It keeps predators at bay, keeps your bones from freezing, and perhaps most importantly, keeps the peace. A shared fire means a shared space, shared stories, and when needed, a safe place to settle disputes without drawing blood. That evening, you begin your first watch. Sitting by the flames, watching sparks rise like tiny shooting stars, you hear the faint padding of animals at the forest edge. The firelight dances in your eyes, and you realize you've just become one tiny link in an ancient survival chain. In today's world, a conflict like this might end up in court. Here, it's settled with a few words and a fair rota. Not everyone is happy, but everyone values the minimum peace, because a sleepless night of arguing is far worse than a night spent tending the fire. By dawn, as the first bird calls, break the silence, the fire is still burning steadily. You've kept your watch, avoided a telling off, and even earned a smoky, delicious strip of meat as a reward. You can't help thinking keeping the fire isn't just about watching embers. It's about making sure the whole camp doesn't go up in flames in either sense of the word. You lay down the staff, the warmth still tingling on your skin, but a new question lingers if they can solve the problem of a dying fire this easily. How will they handle more complicated disputes? As the scent of smoke mingles with laughter from the cooking pit, you have a feeling you'll find out soon, probably by the next fire circle. Part 2. Fireside Story Laws. You've barely sat down on a warm rock by the fire when a loud-voiced aunt calls out, "Oi, don't sit there. That's Chipped Tooth Wolf's spot." You startle, glancing around. There's no sign saying reserved seat, but here seating is apparently decided by legend. Across the flames, a bearded man clears his throat, and instantly the children fall silent. He launches into a long-winded tale of how Chipped Tooth Wolf in his youth saved the whole camp from a raging wild boar by planting himself exactly in that spot to block its charge. The story grows, with each telling the boar is now the size of 2 bears, and Chipped Tooth Wolf as strong as 10 men. By the end, everyone nods, as if a formal judgment has just been handed down. That seat belongs to him, end of discussion. You quickly realize that in the Stone Age, laws aren't written, they're carved deep into collective memory. Whenever a disagreement breaks out over who sits closest to the fire, who gets the bigger slice of meat, someone will just happen to tell an old story that conveniently clarifies the rule. More often than not, the tale favors the side the elder or storyteller prefers, and once repeated enough, it becomes truth. In modern terms, it's like playing a game where the admin makes up the rules and can boot you out if you argue. Only here the rules come wrapped in laughter, the clink of wooden spoons on stone bowls, and the gentle sideways glance of the women shelling nuts. One afternoon you witness an unofficial court session in action. 2 young men are squabbling over the straightest, smoothest roasting stick. Instead of a tug of war, an old man begins long ago, when my grandfather's grandfather was alive. And just like that, all eyes are on him. The tale is about a stick, just like this one, once snapped in 2 by a selfish hunter who hid it for himself. By the time the story ends, the older of the 2 men smiles, sets the stick down, and lets the other take it. The law has been restated, and nobody loses face. You recall that in your past life, historians debated whether prehistoric storytelling was purely entertainment or a tool of social order. Now you know. It's a verbal legal code so effective that no one dares break it, lest they end up as the villain in a future Fireside tale. With time, you learn to spot when such story laws are about to be laid down. The tone shifts slower, weightier, as if the storyteller is carefully placing stones to build an invisible wall around a behavior worth protecting. Sometimes odd details sneak in: a winking deer, a pot that rolls away from greedy hands. Nobody cares if it's logical. The message is the point. As night falls and the fire brightens, an old woman with a voice like charred wood tells a tale about sharing meat fairly. In it, a greedy man loses the juiciest piece to a cheeky little bird that swoops in and steals it mid-bite. The camp erupts in laughter, but you can tell that laughter is also the full stop to any quarrels over food that day. If anyone were to ask what it feels like to live in a society with no written laws, you'd say it's a place where every dispute melts away in a story, just long enough to make even the hot-headed sit down and listen. And by the end, you've usually forgotten why you were angry in the first place. When you leave the fire to find your sleeping spot, the night breeze carries back the sound of more voices, more stories. Tomorrow, there'll be a new one, and it might just involve the piece of meat you're hoping to get at breakfast. Part 3. Sharing the meat, shrinking the ego. A cheer rings out in the distance. You know instantly the hunting party is back. Silhouettes emerge from the misty afternoon shoulders, straining under the weight of a hefty kill. The smell of fresh blood and damp earth clings to its fur, sending the children racing forward, wide-eyed and squealing with excitement. The lead hunter, a tall man glowing as if he's just won the championship, drops the animal in the middle of the camp chest, heaving eyes gleaming in anticipation of praise. But no praise comes. Instead, a voice somewhere in the crowd calls out, "Not much meat on that. Must have been ill if it was that easy to catch." The laughter spreads like dry grass catching fire. The proud hunter freezes, forcing a smile. An older woman pokes the animal's ribs, skinny as anything, barely enough for the children. You're baffled. Back in the modern world, this man would be showered with congratulations, posed for photos, and tagged online with epic catch. But here it seems everyone is deliberately cutting him down a peg. Then it dawns on you this is a clever bit of social engineering. In the Stone Age, too much praise could puff a hunter's ego high enough for him to claim the best cuts. So the camp deflates that ego first with teasing before the meat is divided. The butchering follows an almost unspoken order. The main hunter still gets a prime cut, often the liver or heart, but the bulk is sliced up and shared. The elderly, children, and pregnant women take priority. People gather round, watching every stroke of the stone knife like a sacred ritual. Nobody pushes in. Nobody demands more. The banter keeps the mood light. One young man feigns a sulk when handed a bony rib. Before the tension can rise, a white-bearded elder launches into a tale about a greedy fellow who once dropped his meat into a river, only to watch the fish eat it all before he could grab it back. The whole group laughs. The sulker joins in. You remember how historians used to debate whether sharing in early societies came from altruism or power control. Now you see, it's a fine balance of both preserving harmony while making sure no one's ego grows too big for the group. When the last cut is made, the big bones are set aside for soup while the children snatch up smaller ones to play bone sword fights. The adults thread meat onto sticks, and the fat sizzles as it drips into the fire. The smell is enough to make your stomach stage a loud protest. You think of modern BBQs, where people elbow for the juiciest bit, and the cook ends up sweating over the grill all night. Here, it's the jokes and collective humility that make the meal taste better. Nobody dares be the one who ate alone, and certainly nobody wants to be tomorrow's cautionary tale. Under the moonlight, chewing tender smoky meat, you listen to the laughter tumbling round the fire, and you realize the food here doesn't just feed the body, It feeds the bonds between people. It makes you wonder when disputes aren't about food. Do they have tricks, this neat for cooling things down? Part 4. The Shaman as referee. You're whittling a bit of wood when shouts erupt from the forest's edge. 2 groups, 3 or 4 on each side, march into camp, bristling with spears and heavy stares. They've taken our trap, one side roars. That patch has been ours since the last dry season, the other fires back. The air thickens one spark and it'll blow. In your head, you picture how this would play out in the modern day: a phone call to the police, maybe a wave of paperwork, land contracts, the works. But here, no papers, no authorities. Just 2 groups gripping their weapons a little too tightly. Then a slow, deep thump cuts through the tension. The shaman steps forward. He's not tall nor armed, but the way people instinctively draw back tells you he doesn't need muscle. Feathers in his hair, a necklace of clinking shells at his throat, black streaks painted across his face. In his hands, a hide-bound drum beating steadily like a slowing heartbeat. Quiet now. Let the ancestors speak. His voice is raspy, as though the words have to push through smoke before reaching your ears. No one dares interrupt. He lowers himself to the fire, gesturing for everyone to sit. From a small pouch, he scatters seeds into the flames, muttering in a language you can't make out. The smoke curls upwards in strange shapes. He opens his eyes, scanning each face in turn. The ancestors say the trap belongs to the one who guarded it from beasts last week. But the ancestors also say no one should own the whole forest. The forest is for all. One man shifts about to object, but the shaman raises a hand. To keep the peace, you will trade gifts. The trapkeeper will give the other side a basket of dried fish. The other side will give a bundle of fresh spearheads. And from now on, once a season, you will hunt together so the ancestors may witness your cooperation. It's part arbitration, part trade deal. In today's world, it's basically deliver the goods, sign the joint venture. A child tugs at your sleeve, whispering, if they don't listen, the shaman will call the wind god to blow their tents away. You smirk. Whether the wind god is real or not, the shaman's authority certainly is. He doesn't win because he's the strongest. He wins because he can turn a fight into a ritual, making both sides feel they've done something noble instead of simply backing down. The gifts are exchanged, the mood shifts. People start talking about what to cook with the dried fish. The shaman beats his drum a few more times, then wanders back to his hut of charms and carved talismans. You think to yourself, if modern land disputes could be solved with a basket of fish and a bundle of spearheads, the courts would be empty. Here, legal costs are practical items, and the real reward is keeping good enough terms to hunt together tomorrow. As night falls, the drumbeat fades, but the quiet respect it leaves behind lingers. And you can't help wondering if tomorrow might bring another quarrel, one that needs the smoke, the drum, and the weight of an ancestor's voice. Part 5. Singing duels instead of fistfights. You're shaping a new spearhead when a commotion drifts over from the open clearing in the center of camp. 2 young men stand a few paces apart, bodies tense as drawn bows, eyes locked, knuckles white around their staffs. The air smells of challenge. You brace yourself to see a proper Stone Age brawl. But then an old woman with hair like winter snow chuckles. No fighting today. Today they sing. You blink, sing. The crowd gathers in a circle. The combatants are each handed a short stick, not for hitting, but for tapping on the ground in rhythm. A middle-aged man, the keeper of the beat, steps into the middle and raises his hand to begin. The first man belts out a line loud and proud. Your family hunts deer, but only the limping ones. The circle bursts into laughter, clapping in time. The second man shoots back without hesitation. Your baskets hold water like a cracked shell. Even louder. Laughter, some people slapping their thighs in delight. Back and forth they go, Each jab must rhyme, follow the beat, and land funnier than the last. It's not just about wit, it's about keeping your cool, keeping the crowd, and never stepping over the line, from cheeky to cruel. If this were modern times, you'd call it a rap battle. No microphones, no stage lights, just firelight and the roar of laughter. Points are scored by the cheers, and whoever wins more noise is declared the victor. There's no trophy, but the loser will spend a day doing the winner's chores, fetching water, drying meat, whatever's needed. You remember historians arguing whether prehistoric art was only for entertainment or had a social purpose. Now you know here, songs can replace stones and laughter can take the place of blood. As the duel nears its end, the first man lands a hit that has people clutching their sides. Your spears are as blunt as river pebbles. The other fires back instantly. Your stew tastes saltier than the sea. The beatkeeper raises a hand, the duel's over. The cheer clearly favors one side. The loser grins sheepishly and holds out his hand. The winner hauls him in for a clasp, pulling him towards the fire. No lingering tension, no grudges. Just the smell of smoke, the echo of rhythm sticks and jokes that will be retold for days. You think, if half the internet's arguments were solved like this, there'd be far fewer blocked friends. That night, as you drift to sleep, you can still hear a faint chorus from the fireside light, teasing and sharp enough to settle a score without leaving a scar. You wonder if one day you're challenged, will you be clever enough to win or doomed to spend tomorrow lugging water? Part 6. A son-in-law instead of a war. By morning, the camp is buzzing with low, tense chatter. 2 hunting parties have returned from the forest, both claiming rights to the same stretch of game-rich ground. The looks being exchanged aren't friendly, and you can almost feel the air tightening another step, and it could snap into a fight. But the elder doesn't summon the shaman, nor call for a singing duel. Instead, he raises his hand for silence and says slowly, "We will not fight. We will trade people." The crowd ripples with surprise. You're puzzled until he explains. One strong young man from this group will go live with the other as a son-in-law and vice versa. Each will stay a few seasons, helping their new family hunt, forage, and build. It's an oddly elegant move. Once your side has kin, on their side starting a fight feels uncomfortably like attacking your own. The selection is swift. Neither of the chosen men looks thrilled, but both keep their faces steady. They're given parting gifts, newly carved spears, baskets of seeds, and walk across to their new homes. From the far side of the circle, an elderly woman grins and calls out to one of them. "From now on, call me Mother Lad." In modern terms, it's a cross between an arranged marriage and a political alliance. Except no lawyers or dowries, just mutual self-interest and a dash of humor to smooth the edges. By evening, a small feast is laid for the new sons-in-law. The meat smells rich, mixed with the smoky sweetness of roasted forest fruit. Games follow splitting logs, keeping rhythm on hollow wood, and the earlier tension has thinned to nothing. Historians used to argue whether prehistoric marriages were only for reproduction or also for forming alliances. Watching this, you have your answer. They were also a peace treaty you could eat dinner with. In the weeks after, you notice the difference. The 2 groups hunt nearer together. They share tools, swap cuts of meat. Encounters at the forest edge turn into friendly inquiries about our lad rather than narrowed eyes. And slowly the hunting ground dispute slips into the category of stories to tease people with over the fire. Sitting with a strip of charred venison, you realize in this world avoiding war isn't about having the sharpest spear. It's about knowing when to marry one off. Part 7. Barley Feast for Healing Rifts. When you return to camp that afternoon, the air feels heavy, like the tense pause before a summer storm. 2 groups sit with their backs to each other, silent, their fires smoldering low. You ask a boy nearby what happened, He whispers, "They argued over a basket of berries. Both say they saw it first." In the modern world, there'd be CCTV footage, timestamps, maybe a heated group chat with screenshots. Here, no one can prove a berry sighting, and without a fix, the chill between the groups will only deepen. The elder frowns, thinks for a long moment, then says, "We will hold a barley feast." The words ripple through the camp. There's a spark of anticipation. You soon learn that a barley feast is special. Hulled barley grains are roasted, mixed with ripe berries, and left to ferment into a mildly tangy, sweet-smelling drink that makes people loosen up and laugh more easily. Preparations start at once. Men bring out big clay jars, women wash the barley, children run to gather more fruit. The nutty scent of roasting grain drifts across the camp, warm and inviting. By nightfall, the fire is built higher than usual. The fermented barley is ladled into wooden bowls, the fragrance of berries mingling with the smoke. Before drinking, each person raises their bowl to those across the circle, a silent toast of sorts, then sips. Music begins, not with instruments, but with stones tapping in rhythm, hands, clapping voices, rising in simple, joyful choruses. Soon, someone starts a thigh-slapping dance, and one by one, people join in. You spot the two original berry rivals grinning sheepishly as they accidentally clap hands mid-dance. Historians have long wondered if prehistoric feasts were purely for food and celebration, or if they also mended rifts. Now you know they're therapy sessions disguised as parties. The night stretches on. The bowls keep circulating. Jokes replace mutters, and even the children add tall tales about hunting tigers with a wooden spoon, just to make the adults roar with laughter. By the end, nobody seems to remember or care who first spotted the berries. When the last embers glow and the jars are empty, people drift to their shelters with tired smiles. You walk slowly to yours, thinking sometimes all it takes to dissolve an argument is a pot of barley, a handful of fruit, and a dance that makes everyone look a bit ridiculous. Part 8. Obsidian and Gifts from Afar. The camp feels thick with tension the next morning, like porridge left too long over the fire. You're sharpening a spearhead when raised voices carry from the forest path. A group of hunters trudge back into camp, shoulders stiff, faces grim. Their game, a few scrawny rabbits and a bundle of scruffy bird feathers, hits the ground without ceremony. But before they even shake off the dust, they're pointing spears at the neighboring camp. "They took our hunting path," one of them spits. "That track has been ours since my grandfather's grandfather," comes the reply. In the modern world, this would mean maps, property deeds, maybe a long legal battle. Here boundaries live in memory, marked by a certain tree rock or bend in the stream, and memories rarely match perfectly. The elder arrives, moving slowly, but with eyes that quiet the noise. He doesn't argue. Instead, he calls over a wiry young runner and whispers a few words. The lad vanishes into the trees. An hour later, he's back carrying a bulging leather sack. When it's opened, the sunlight flashes on sharp black shards of obsidian volcanic glass, razor-edged and rare in these parts. Beneath them are a string of pale shells, polished smooth, and a pouch of coarse sea-scented salt. "These are from the far mountains and the distant sea," the elder says evenly. "We will give half to our neighbors as an apology for hunting too near their path. In return, they will allow us a share of that track each season." There's a murmur, some faces show reluctance. Obsidian makes the best blades, shells are prized for adornment, and salt is precious. But the elder's logic is clear: trade treasure for peace and gain access to the hunting ground without bloodshed. In modern terms, it's foreign aid with strings attached. The gift exchange is held beside the fire. The other camp's eyes widen at the obsidian fingers tracing its perfect edges. The shells are slipped around a child's neck. The salt is divided and tucked away like gold. In return, they bring a freshly killed deer, its meat still warm. Cuts are shared on the spot, laughter replacing sharp words. Historians often debate whether prehistoric trade was purely economic or also political. Watching this, you see it's both a way to turn conflict into cooperation, faster than any drawn-out negotiation. That evening, someone uses a new obsidian flake to make a spear so sharp it slices through sinew in one stroke. Children chase each other, the shell necklace bouncing as they run. The morning's argument is forgotten, replaced by stories of the deer hunt. Sitting by the fire, you watch the obsidian gleam in the flicker of the flames, and think sometimes to travel far, you don't need to walk fast, you just need to bring something back from far away. Part 9. Oath before the Sacred Stone. You're idly sketching patterns on a scrap of wood with a bit of charcoal when an urgent call sweeps through the camp. Everyone to the sacred stone. There's trouble. Before you can brush the dirt off your hands, you're pulled along with the crowd to a clearing at the forest's edge. In its center sits a great slab of pale grey rock, worn smooth by time, its surface etched with twisting lines that the elders call the marks of the earth spirit. Two groups stand facing each other, weapons in hand, backs, straight jaws tight, all over a seemingly small matter. One side swears, the other crossed into their foraging ground, plucking the best of the red berries from a patch beyond the boundary. The accused retort, "There is no boundary. Fruit grows where it grows." If there were GPS here, the argument would be over in minutes. But here, the only map is memory and this stone. The elder steps up to its staff in hand, tapping the ground lightly. No one is born knowing the boundaries, but the ancestors left signs. This stone has split the two territories since 3 generations past. Forget that, and the earth spirit will not forgive. One by one, each person from both sides steps forward, placing a bare hand on the cool, solid face of the stone. They speak the same short vow, "I will not cross without ceremony, I will not take what is not mine." What? It's not shouted, but each word lands like a weight. You stand back, struck by the seriousness of it. No one dares mock the ritual, not because the stone will leap up and strike them, but because breaking your word here means losing face, trust, and your place by the fire. After the vows, a bowl of clear water is set upon the stone, the water spirits witness. Each person dips their hands, splashing their face as if to wash away dishonesty. The children, of course, turn it into a game, flicking droplets until the crowd chuckles and the tension ebbs. The ceremony ends with everyone sharing roasted chestnuts and strips of sugarcane. Each person must eat at least one bite, symbolic sweetness sealing the peace. That night, passing the sacred stone, you notice faint handprints, still marked with dust. You press your palm against them, cold, rough, steady. You whisper the words you heard, "I will not cross." And as the moonlight glances off those old winding carvings, you realize that here, law can be nothing more than a promise spoken aloud to a rock, so long as the whole camp believes in it. Part 10. Stick fighting with safety rules. At first light, while the mist still clings to the footpaths and you're tying a new point to your spear, a sharp shout cuts through the birdsong. "Don't touch my axe without asking." You turn to see 2 hefty young men squared off in the middle of camp, each gripping a long wooden staff, their stances low and tense, like bulls ready to lock horns. The argument, both claim the same stone-headed axe time and sweat went into making it, and neither will back down. The real dispute isn't over the axe itself, it's over pride. In this world, a good tool is proof of skill and standing, and when egos clash, the staff comes into play. If this were the 21st century, the quarrel might turn into a string of angry texts, pointed social media posts, and an awkward meeting to clear the air. Here, a white-bearded elder steps in, voice firm. "Enough. Settle it with a stick fight, but under the rules. Instantly, the mood shifts. People start preparing the space not to avoid the fight, but to make it safe. Leaves and twigs are swept away from a wide patch of ground. A circle is drawn with ash and charcoal. The sticks are cut from sturdy hazel, smoothed and carefully checked, no sharp points, no splinters. A referee is chosen. A wiry old woman known for her sharp eye and sharper tongue. She reads out the rules for all to hear. No head strikes, no jabbing the belly, no intentional injury. Heavy blows will be called foul. First out of the ring or knocked down without returning a strike loses. You squeeze into the front row with the children who are already buzzing as if this were festival entertainment. The fighters step into the ring. The referee lifts her stick high, then drops it match on. Wood meets wood with a clack, the rhythm controlled and deliberate. No wild swings, just careful pushes, blocks, and the occasional quick feint. Both are trying to win, but they're also holding back a public fight. Means you can't let your temper run the show. A few minutes in, one man stumbles on the ash line, but regains his balance to a chorus of oohs. The referee warns them sharply, one more reckless blow, and I end it. They nod and continue, more measured this time. Finally, a neat sideways sweep sends one fighter stepping just beyond the ring. The match is over. No blood, no broken bones, just sweat and the sound of breathing. The loser bows his head. The winner doesn't gloat. The elder declares, the loser will carry water for 3 days. The winner will hunt with my group. The loser is handed a wooden ladle by a grinning child, more encouragement than mockery. A woman passes him a handful of roasted nuts. The crowd breaks up talking about dinner rather than the dispute. You've heard people say early humans only solved problems with violence, but this proves otherwise. Here even a fight has boundaries, rules, and a referee. By evening, the man on water duty is trudging back from the stream, a couple of children trotting alongside to help tie his load. The same old axe sits quietly by the fire, now shared without fuss. Looking at the smooth staff propped against the hut wall, you think sometimes it's not about stopping the fight, it's about containing it, so it ends with sore arms, not grudges. Part 11. Granny's Gentle Intervention. You're tightening the straps on your pack when you hear a sharp, annoyed huff from the far corner of camp. 2 women, distant cousins, are standing back-to-back, faces set like stone. One grips a dried fishbone, her voice low but sharp. I saved this from yesterday. The other, without looking up. If you didn't say so, how was I meant to know? It's not about the fishbone, not really. It's about ownership, memory, and a bit of pride. People glance over, but no one steps in. Everyone knows this is a job for Granny. She appears without ceremony, as if she's simply grown out of the earth. Her hair is the color of cold ash, her basket lined with warm, roasted chestnuts. She doesn't tell them off. She doesn't even look directly at them. She simply sets the basket down between them and says, eat. Chew slowly, unless you want to choke and blame each other again. The words are light, but they land with the weight of a hammer. The women hesitate, then sit. They each take a chestnut, crack the shell, and chew in silence. From her robe, Granny pulls out a small fishbone. This is yesterday's leftover. Whoever left it there will know. Whoever hid it and forgot will now tie a little marker to their share like I do. No scolding, no judgment. Just a solution slipped into the air like a leaf on the stream. The tension melts. One woman digs out a piece of sweet root and passes it over. The other smiles faintly and nods. No sorry is spoken, but everyone understands. Granny's power isn't in force or ceremony, it's in memory. She knows who borrowed a basket and never gave it back, who still owes a length of cord, who muttered what during the last rainy season. She doesn't use this knowledge to stir trouble. She keeps it like a safety net, ready to untangle knots before they tighten. Once you see her step between two young men fighting over a stone knife, she presses a bundle of unspun flax into one set of hands and says, "A good man knows when to use a knife, and a better man knows who needs it more." And just like that, the knife is handed over, no grudges left behind. You think of the modern world, what it would be like if in the middle of an online argument, someone's grandmother appeared with a snack and told you to chew before you speak. The internet might be a calmer place. That night, Granny sits by the fire, shelling chestnuts, gazing into the flames. People come and go, slipping her small gifts: a strip of hide, a carved bead, a pretty stone. None of it is payment, it's gratitude wrapped in silence. You realize then some conflicts need drums, some need stones, some need rules, but the smallest, sharpest ones often just need someone with a long memory, a warm basket, and perfect timing. Part 12. Walking away to keep the peace. You wake to an odd quiet. No laughter from the children paddling in the stream, no tapping of stone tools, not even the familiar bite of wood smoke in the air. It's the kind of stillness that makes you feel as if the whole camp is holding its breath. Stepping outside, you see people silently packing bundling spears, baskets of nuts, hides, even cooking stones. You ask an older woman tying her pack, "What's going on? Where's everyone going?" She nods towards the tree line. "We're splitting the camp for a while. Not leaving, just giving each other room to breathe." It turns out the trouble began yesterday. Two foraging groups returned at the same time, only to discover the juiciest berry bushes had been stripped bare. One side swore they'd found them first, the other that they'd arrived earlier. Voices rose, then cooled, but never quite warmed again. Signs of the chill showed quickly: separate fires. Children no longer playing across the gap. The quiet murmur of talk kept strictly within each group. No one called the elder. No one summoned the shaman. It was simply understood time apart would cool the heat faster than more words could. You follow one of the groups as they walk along the stream packs on their backs. After half a day, they find a shaded clearing with fresh water and signs of small game. They build a few shelters, light a small fire, and settle into a quieter rhythm. No one calls it a split, no speeches are made, no agreements written, just distance. In modern terms, it's a soft unfriend or a temporary desk move in the office space, enough to stop bumping elbows. Here, it's part of the natural ebb and flow of living close to others. Over the following days, life in the temporary camp is easy. People laugh, hunt, tell stories, but they don't mention the other group. It's not bitterness. It's simply setting the matter down and leaving it where it fell. On the 8th day, a young man from the main camp appears with a basket of roasted chestnuts and a square of tanned hide. On the hide is a single footprint, stamped in red earth, the sign of acceptance. He hands it over with no speech. The next morning, the smaller camp packs up and returns. No ceremony, no formal reconciliation. The shared fire is built larger than usual, baskets of food set in the middle for anyone to take. An older woman calls out, "Took you long enough. I had to roast all your chestnuts myself." The laughter rolls easily. Children dart between fires. Young men head to the stream with their spears. The berry bush dispute is never mentioned again. You see it clearly long before written law people understood that not every quarrel can be talked out. Sometimes it needs only space-time and the decision to come back when the embers are cold. That night, you lie in the half-light of the dying fire, thinking perhaps the best way to stay together for years is to spend a little while apart. Not to forget, but to remember better. Part 13. Seasons and natural boundaries. You're stooping to pick up a freshly fallen forest fruit when raised voices drift over from the stream. "That's our foraging ground. That tree's roots are on our side of the stone. Another border dispute this time over a clump of berry bushes and 3 rock crabs. You wander closer and see 2 small groups pointing past each other towards a patch of ground caught between a sprawling banyan tree and a moss-covered boulder. Both insist they've used this spot since the year of the long dry winds. Both have witnesses. Neither is backing down. In the modern world, someone would fetch a GPS mark coordinates and declare a fixed line. But here, boundaries aren't static. They live in memory and in nature's cycles. The elder arrives without haste, carrying nothing but a long stick and a handful of ash. The boundary is not in the land, he says. It is in the season. He kneels and draws a faint line in the soil between the 2 groups, then points to the banyan. In the dry months, the banyan marks the northern edge. In the rains, the boundary shifts to the moss stone. Why? Because the rains change the animals' paths and the roots stretch further in the wet. We forage by the season, not by the soil. A few young men exchange sheepish glances. The elder reminds them of an old lesson from when Granny still had black hair, that no place belongs to you all the time. Historians often ask whether early people truly understood seasonal land cycles. Standing here, you can see they did, and they wove them into their social rules. With the reminder given, one group shoulders their baskets and moves off without fuss. A man grins over his shoulder. When the dry comes, we'll expect it back the same way we gave it. Nearby children scratch a map into the dirt. Banyan equals dry season line, moss stone equals rainy season line, treating it like an ancient board game whose rules shift twice a year. You sit under the banyan for a while, feeling its roots curling deep into the soil like an anchor for memory. There are no survey markers here, no concrete posts, just trust, repetition, and the landmarks that outlive everyone arguing over them. That night, the fire throws dancing shadows across the ground where the elder's ash line was drawn. Someone tells the cautionary tale of the year no one honored the seasons and the famine that followed. The moral settles into the air like smoke. Boundaries are easier to keep when nature decides them for you. Part 14. Compensation to end a cycle of revenge. The day begins like any other, smoke curling from the cooking fires, the steady thud of someone shaping a spearhead. Then a shout slices through the air from the edge of Camp Watch where you throw that spear. 2 men stand a few paces apart. One grips a long stone-tipped spear, looking pale and flustered. The other is rubbing his calf where a sharp bruise is already blooming. The spear had missed by inches. A little closer, and it could have been a broken bone. On its own, the injury is minor. But the man who was nearly struck is the son of one of the camp's most respected hunting families. The thrower is from a newer group who joined the camp not long ago. The wrong mix of pride and suspicion, and this could spiral into retaliation, one accident answered by another. Murmurs pass through the crowd. They won't let this go. Next season we'll be hunting separately again. Before the resentment takes root, the elder calls for everyone to gather in the center of camp. There, on a wide patch of bare earth, a large goatskin is spread out. The man who threw the spear steps forward, hands trembling slightly. One by one he lays down gifts. First, a soft, well-tanned mountain goat hide perfect for making a winter coat. Nods of approval ripple through the crowd. Next, a necklace strung with bird bone and shell, each piece carved and polished by hand. It's as much an offering of time as of beauty. Then a bundle of sweet dried roots enough to feed a family for several days. And finally words, quiet but clear. I meant no harm. My hand was careless. I give these so there will be no more pain from my mistake. The injured man steps forward. He studies the offerings for a long moment. Then instead of taking them all, he pushes the roots aside. These will cook for everyone, he says. A light cheer runs through the circle. The sting of grievance is already fading. But the elder isn't done. He signals to one of the older women who steps up, holding a small twig tied with a leaf. From today, anyone who drops or throws a spear by accident will wear a leaf like this around their neck for 3 days, so people know to stand clear. The rule is accepted without debate. It's practical, memorable, and most importantly, born out of a story everyone has just witnessed. By nightfall, the 2 men are sitting by the same fire, one roasting nuts, the other slicing meat. The accident is not mentioned again. You realize then that here compensation isn't about buying forgiveness. It's about publicly showing you want to live in the same circle tomorrow and the day after that. Part 15. Early Village Unspoken Rules. You're woken earlier than usual, the sky still pale with first light. Not for hunting, not for fire duty. Today the camp is moving to the first season village. The word village sounds formal, but it isn't. It's a meeting ground beside a wide bend in the river, where every group in the region gathers for the dry season. People who've quarreled, traded, married, or split apart over the past year all pitch their shelters here for a while. It sounds idyllic, but you soon notice something unusual. There's no headman, no written rules, no carved post declaring what's allowed. Yet somehow it runs with startling order. As soon as you finish setting up your shelter, a neighbor leans over and murmurs, "Pitch too close to the grain store, and you'll be on night watch." Nobody tells you outright what the rules are. You just learn them by doing, or by watching someone else make a mistake. These are the unspoken laws. The grain store itself is common property. Anyone may take from it, but they must mark their share by cutting notches into a bone hanging nearby, 1 notch for a handful, 2 for a day's worth. Nobody counts the exact grain, but everyone sees the marks. Once someone took grain without cutting a notch. That night, they woke to find a tuft of dry grass and a chicken bone on their doorstep, a silent reminder to pay their dues. The next day they cut double the notches. No lectures, no punishment, just the quiet pressure of everyone knowing. Historians often ask if prehistoric people could have soft law rules. No one writes down, but everyone follows. Here it's clear when the risk of becoming tonight's cautionary story outweighs the temptation to cheat the law is as solid as any stone tablet. On the first full moon of the month, the entire village gathers for the moon meeting. There's no shouting, no heated crosstalk. A carved talking stick is passed around, only the person holding it speaks, and when they've finished, they place it down. One man speaks about the path into the village turning muddy, suggesting laying down more stones. Another proposes sharing extra crab traps with a newly arrived family. Someone else recounts a close call with a charging stag asking for more balanced hunting groups. No votes are taken, no resolutions written, but the next day the path is covered in stones, the crab traps are shared, and hunting parties quietly shuffle their numbers. You once see a child take 2 handfuls of dried berries without marking the bone. Her mother gently leads her to it and says, "You took 2, you mark 2. No mark is a debt, and debt is a stain." The girl nods, carves her notches, and runs off to play. By your last night in the first season village, you realize the real strength here isn't the grain store, the talking stick, or even the rules themselves. It's the fear of being the person everyone whispers about around the fire. This unspoken law holds the village together through storms, lean hunts, and moonlit gatherings. It's invisible, but it's everywhere, woven into glances, small gestures, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing you've kept your share of the bargain.